We shall never surrender. We shall fight on the beaches and in the streets.
Italy's foreign policy was largely driven by territorial and imperial ambitions. Similar to Germany's Lebensraum, Italy desired an outlet for its surplus population. Italy planned to populate its colonies with Italian migrants, therefore fixing both its overpopulation and unemployment. Benito Mussolini, the dictator of fascist Italy, used his speeches to create a dream of a modern Roman Empire. Mussolini's territorial ambitions planned to extend Italy's power over the Balkans, North and East Africa and the Mediterranean. He also lay his sights on Spain and British Gibraltar. The Suez Canal and Gibraltar were of particular importance. Mussolini regarded them as the prison guards of the Mediterranean, as they were the only two passages leading in and out of the sea, and they were both under British control. Mussolini recognised the significance of naval power for control of the seas. He desired control of the Mediterranean and access to the Atlantic and Indian Oceans. Therefore, in the long term, Mussolini planned to challenge the British fleet in order to assert its dominance as a naval power in the Mediterranean. In accomplishing its ambitions, Italy would increase its prestige as a power in Europe. Mussolini hoped to delay war till as early as 1942. He knew Italy was not prepared for war as its economy was minor compared to other European powers. The Italian industry sector was the weakest of all. It did not equal more than 15% of that of France or of that of Britain, and its military was in no position to rival them either. Mussolini's pride would soon draw Italy into the war. Despite being allies, Germany's successes in Central Europe created pressure for the fascist dictator. Mussolini was worried that Italy would be left behind in the conquest of Europe. And to add to this pressure, Hitler was requesting an Italian entry to the war. Germany's invasion of France would bring Italy into the war, as they opened the Alpine front against France. Italy's invasion of France had brought war to North Africa. On June 11th, British Commonwealth forces in Egypt, known as the Western Desert Force, began a series of raids against Italian positions in Libya. Commonwealth forces captured a number of Italian forts and outposts, inflicting an estimated 3,500 casualties. But due to degrading equipment which came with operating in the desert, these raids were brought to an end by August. The month that followed was relatively quiet as the Battle of Britain raged over the skies of southern England. The Italian 10th Army, strengthened by the Italian 5th Army and commanded by Rodolfo Graziani, launched an offensive into Egypt on the 9th of September. The objective for the 150,000 strong force was the capture of the Suez Canal, but due to supply problems the offensive was halted just 105 kilometres in at Sidi Barrani. The week-long push saw minimal fighting, with Italian forces suffering only 500 casualties, as the Commonwealth forces were still stationed at Mussolini. Despite urging from Mussolini for the advance to continue, Italian forces took up defensive positions around the port of Sidi Barrani and began the construction of a line of fortified camps. Italian forces planned to build up supplies for their next advance on Mussolini, where the 7th Armoured Division and Indian 4th Division was based. But this offensive would not take place. The Italian 10th Army would remain stagnant in western Egypt for 3 months until the Allied launching of Operation Compass in December. Operation Compass would be the first large Allied military operation in North Africa during World War II. Launched on December 9th, the plan was for a 5-day raid on Italian camps around Sidi Barrani, but the operation would soon turn into much more than just that. Despite the Western Desert Force numbering just 36,000 and being outnumbered 4-1 by Italy's 10th Army, they had overwhelming success. Within 2 days, all Italian camps around Sidi Barrani had been captured, and by the end of the week, the 10th Army had been forced out of Egypt. The Western Desert Force captured vast numbers of Italian prisoners and continued to do so as the operation stretched into 1941. Over 38,000 Italian prisoners were taken that December, and the increasing number of POWs soon became a problem. As well as in that time, Italy suffered 2,184 fatalities and 2,287 wounded, with Commonwealth forces taking a mere 133 fatalities and 387 wounded. Italy's failed invasion of Egypt would draw the German Africa Corps to North Africa the following year, a deployment Hitler was hoping to avoid. Commanded by Erwin Rommel, they would soon be the dominating Axis power in the North African theatre. One reason behind Italy's failed invasion was the low level of training among its military officers. There was simply insufficient budget to provide the necessary training for the army commanders. Also, Italy lacked a strong automotive industry, which made it difficult for them to mechanise their military. This also contributed to supply problems.